I often get questions about samples, specifically personal samples, and how to use them in the device. I have made a video on this before, which is a bit older. Today, I would like to revisit this topic and try to go into a bit more detail. Do you use your own samples in the Korg Kronos or in other devices as well? How do you handle it? Feel free to leave a comment. First, I'm going to go into disk mode. Then I switch down here to my USB stick, which I have already plugged in, and I have an incredible number of files that we don't need to worry about right now. And I am now looking for my folder. Now I have done hide unknown files. That means everything else on the stick that the Kronos does not recognize, including system files from my Mac, will be hidden at first. Then I have samples media in my folder. I click on it to open. Then I search for my song. Moves like Jenga, Is It Today? Click on open. Now I have 5 files here that I need for the rehearsal. I want to get ready for the next rehearsal. I want to program the sounds on the device, but since I don't have much time at the moment, I'm just helping myself with the samples. I can now listen to the individual samples here via play. I know exactly what is in there. I know the samples, of course, because I recorded them myself. Now I first click on multiple select and choose all the samples. You don't have to do it all at once. You can also just take individual samples, but then I have to keep going back into the menu. What should I do now? Now I will load the samples into the memory first. I do this by pressing load here. Yes, I am sure. Now he is loading the samples into the memory. I will click in the sampling mode. Now I have a selection up here where I can choose my multi-samples. I already have some samples in the device, so I'm now looking for the next available slot, clicking on it, and then it asks me if I want a new one. I can choose here whether to use stereo or not. I'm not taking stereo now because it doesn't matter to me with the samples, and I will use less memory. Click OK again. Now it has been created. Now I can click up here again. I can first simply rename the multi-sample. Specify the name of the song and add sample after it. I've gotten into the habit of doing this now. I didn't do it before, but this way I can better distinguish the sounds later in the individual program banks. So, click OK. Now everything is ready. Now I can select my sample here. I see the index. I can create multiple indexes, which means I can assign multiple keys. I can then select the sample here, specify which key I want to assign the sample to, and then choose the range upwards from here. I had already thought about what I wanted to do, so I'm not using C now, but my lowest E on the 73 key. I click enter, press the key, and there I have E1. The same for the top key. I'll get to that in a moment. Now I select my sample. I obviously have to search for that now. It's further back because it was already full. I would like to have the whistling sound. We can see here that he always makes a sample 2 from one sample, namely for left and right. I don't need that right now. I will choose one. They are both the same, and now I have that in there. So when I click on this key, this happens. Nothing happens on the key above it. Something would happen on the key below it. Why is that? You always set the original key firmly on the note where the sound comes from. You can limit it upwards using the top key, but not downwards. If I had more keys below, it would transpose the sample. I will now simply change my original key to F here. Then we will hear F original. Okay, I also need to change the top key, sorry. So when I go to E now, it transposes it down already. This is how I can transpose a sample as well. The downside to this is that the speed changes. When shifting by 1 or 2 tones, it may not be particularly relevant depending on the sound, but it can be noticeable. You need to make some adjustments. So I'm going back to my E now, and that's it. Once I have the sample at the right length, I am now done with the first sound for me. But I can also change something here, and I can see the waveform and set the area that I want to modify. I'll just do this here as an example, and then I can do a few things from the menu up here. For instance, I can normalize, make it louder or quieter. I can create a fade-in. I don't want to do all of that right now, just so you know that it's possible. The same goes here with the loop. If I want to create a loop, I have already made a video about it, which I link in the top right and also in the video description. I can change the starting point here, change the loop start and change the end. Also, quite interesting if you need it. Now I have a sample here. Great, but I want to have several. So I'm clicking here on Create. Then he creates a new index here and moves directly to the next note, specifically to the note above the top key that I have set here before. That means when I I'll show that in a moment when I set a different top key. It also jumps to the next note. Now I need to check what I wanted for a sample on my F. I wanted to have my FX03 there. So now I click back in here, scroll back, select the sound here, the sample, and now it's there. It's quite simple. Now I click here on top key, so the sound is now only on my F. Now I go to top key, change it to F sharp, and then you can already hear it transposing. If I go to create now to generate the next one, it directly selects the G. I don't want that right now. I want a sound on F sharp, so I'm going back here, changing my top key to F, then back to 3, and then here to F sharp. Then I'll just take a look again at which sample. I want to have sample 1, then I click back in here. I scroll through it. Did I really just take the right one? Yes, I did 1, so on fizzy. Now we continue on G. I would like to have X02. I hope I wrote it down correctly, otherwise I will have difficulties during a rehearsal. Yes, that's correct. Now I will do the next one. And that would be, if I paid attention correctly, it should be sample 1. Was right. Of course not right. Then obviously. I will quickly go through sample 4. I have 4, I have 2, I have 1, I have 3. So now I have all the samples I want to use. What do I do now? I click on Convert Multi-Sample to Program. In the top right corner, then I select a program. I will take one where I want to save it later anyway. He is now taking on the name. Now I click here, we remember that FF81. OK. I save it, then I go into program mode and check if it is there. There is the sound. Everything is there, wonderful. So now we go into disk mode. I go from the stick down to my hard drive, and now I need to save everything. Save. I will now do save all, so that the PCG is also saved along with all the sample data. I will name it as it was named before. So that I don't have so much data on it, I make my backups independently of that. Of course, this overwrites everything. I could have also just saved the PCG and the KSC separately. That's how easily we get the samples into the device. I hope I could help you a little.